Oh, good morning, everyone. It is so good to be back here. The last time I was here, I had to look, was April. You all know I have a couple of teenagers, and Baylor is a senior this year, so we took the summer and traveled all over and looked at a number of schools and things like that. So that's where I've been, that's what we've been doing. And we also had a quinceañera last night, and the kids were up to about 2 o'clock, so that's why they're not here with me today. But it is so good to be back, and that song is perfect. That one word, faith. In studying for my message today, I looked at it in a way that I'd never looked before. So hopefully I'll be able to bring that out a little bit. We're on this one, yes? You know, this is also the first time I'm here since my brother Skip. It's my first time getting mic'd up by Dave and Shane. Thank you guys. And so just good thoughts, loving memories, good things. So it's January. We all know what we're talking about. Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind, the first 4 books. Reverend Bonnie covered the thing itself, and last week Reverend Pat Conway covered the way it works. I will talk about what it does, and you all know that I'm not sure who's speaking next week, but I always talk about how to use it, or at least how I use it. So I'll be covering a lot of that today. But last week, Reverend Pat talked about presence. In the presence of God, that we must be present to experience whatever we desire from Spirit. That our mind is the outlet, and that's how the energy works through us. So last year, every year I start off the beginning of the year at a Unity church because they do the white stone ceremony. And last year I wrote on my stone, presence. I wanted to be aware of the presence of God at all times, as much as I could remember it. Thinking of the presence. Instead of my problem, I want to be focused on the solution. So I'm looking for the presence. This year, a week or 2 ago, the word on my white stone for the white stone ceremony was alignment. Not only just being aware of the presence, but, okay, Bram, now it's time to, how about you align yourself with this thing that you think works and gives you energy and how the universe works. So I'm going to work on a little bit more alignment this year. Alignment is the title of my talk today, so hopefully I'll be able to do that. And to me, alignment with Spirit means going within for the answers. Reverend Pat talked about we often look out externally for the answers. That's kind of how I was raised. We were kind of hardwired. You always go external. I always thought God was some white dude with a long white beard and a long white robe out on a big white cloud. And I don't think it works that way anymore. But that was okay for my foundation. But through my prayer work, it still takes a lot of focus for me to go here first instead of out there. So I'm still working on that. There she is right there. Thank you so much for your inspiration last week. Great stuff. And you all have heard me use this analogy before. Instead of looking externally for the answers, it's kind of like the bicycle wheel. So this wheel is spinning. And sometimes our life is spinning out of control. And when we hang on to that rim, what are we doing? That centrifugal force is flinging us around as fast as the universe will go. The answers are not there. They're not out there. It's not in more food, and it's not in a relationship, and it's not in drugs or anything else. It might be in rock and roll, especially the way y'all play it, but it's not in any of those other things. It's internally. So as I've put before, that the furthest distance we'll ever travel, from our crown chakra right to our heart chakra right here, if we just travel down one of those spokes to the center of the hub, there is no movement. We all know, be still and know that I am. That's the answer, to go within for the answers. So that's what I continue to work on. So this thing itself, where is it? What is it? Where is God? The New Thought churches, we talk about being a safe place where you can come to question your answers. And I didn't think that was possible. I was not raised that way. You think the way we tell you to think, or there's the door. That's how I was raised. So I love the fact that these are safe places where you can question your answers. And I'll go over this again. If you want to know how a church thinks, a center thinks, ask these 3 questions. Where is God? Is number 1. External, internal, male, female. I just said, we all know that God is everywhere and everything. But the most important place is God in us, as us, expressing as spiritual beings in a physical universe. Number 2, where are you in relation to God? Are we separate? Are we together? If we believe that God's in heaven, guess where Jesus said heaven is? Within. The kingdom of heaven is within us. And number 3, how can you reach God or even Can you reach God? And we believe that to reach God, that we must be still and know that I am God, to quiet the mind, to go within, getting rid of any problem we face as soon as we focus on the solution, being spirit, more than the problem. So the thing itself, Holmes states in The Science of Mind that learning to trust and have faith will make us happy. There's a power in the universe that honors our faith in it, and this power seems to await our comprehension of her, looking for that presence. This power, this law reacts to us according to our belief in it, and as Reverend Bonnie said, denying it will never change it, affirming it doesn't make it any bigger or better, but it is done unto us as each of us believe. So if we believe something's difficult, guess what? It's going to be difficult and we're not going to comprehend it. Our mind, which we use to discover things, is the same mind that's used to govern and make everything. Pardon me. This is the thing itself. This is God. Realizing it is another thing sometimes. But the thing itself, as Reverend Bonnie said, it's kind of like love. You might not see it, but you certainly feel it. So I like that example. So now the way it works. So if God is to interpret itself to us, it must interpret itself through us. In our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power that we possess, which is why Jesus summed up his whole philosophy in the simple statement, it is done unto you as you believe. So we suffer not because suffering is imposed upon us. We suffer because we're ignorant of our true nature of children of the Most High, made in the image and likeness of our Creator, which is in perfection. Just in perfection. We are not what has happened to us. We're so much more. We are so much more. So this power, this thing we call God, doesn't act upon us, but instead comes through us in our belief in it. Emerson said, there is no great and there is no small for the soul that createth all. I love that. Therefore, our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which has no limit. That's the kicker. It's so interesting. So it's entirely a question of our receptivity. How much can one demonstrate? And that's only what we can believe. How much can we see? How much can we accept? How much can we find in our consciousness? So whatever that is, that much we can have. So if we were to picture the universe, all the abundance, the prosperity, everything wonderful that we could ever want as the ocean, let's say, what are you going to the water's edge with? A thimble? Is that how much you're going to take? No. How about a 5-gallon bucket? Let's take a 5-gallon bucket. That's a little better. How about a 55-gallon drum? Was that enough? Then I got the idea. I want to take a pump. I just want to take a pump, and I want to take all that stuff. And guess what? There's more enough for me. There's plenty for you. There's even more for you. It's not a zero-sum game. You can take all you want, and the more you take, the better. That's the thing. We're playing small, and it's time to play bigger, go home. That's the idea that I get. That Spirit always wants to give us more than we could ever imagine, better than we could ever imagine. But the way I was raised, I didn't want to do the things the way God wanted me to do it, because I certainly wasn't enough of a good boy. And if I had to do it, I'd have to do all these other things that were not in alignment, what I wasn't congruent with as I thought as a child, a young man, a young adult. God wants us to have everything in the most wonderful way. But the only thing we can have is whatever we have the consciousness for. Holmes says, what we draw from this universe, we must draw through the channel of our own mind. So picture Reverend Bonnie's funnel that she had the other day. So here's this divine mind, the universal mind, and it's as big as everything out there. And then it funnels in down to us. We're each one of those receptacles down at the bottom of the funnel. Now, sometimes I've got rocks in mine. Some people tell me I got rocks in my head, but I'm just trying to get that stuff out and be open. So opening that up allows us to accept more. How then do we manifest what we want? Here comes the faith word again. By stating and feeling that our mind knows the truth about what we desire. This is how we draw infinite mind through our own mentality. See it how you want it to be. Hear it how you want it to be. Feel it how you want it to be. Imagine, envision, and ruminate on how you want it to be. Because the mind doesn't know whether we're remembering we're experiencing, or we're imagining. That's another beautiful thing about the mind. That's how we create. Find that feeling of something really, really good. You're in a great state. Like when I walked in here today, I just started vibrating off the planet. What great energy everybody brought today. I seriously mean that. You walk in the door, and I mean, I've got God bumps right now. I mean, it's palpable. And you all created this, okay? You created it. Didn't happen by accident. Somebody, you have to feel it. So get that feeling and then think about what you want to create more of. That's how the law works, and it must return to us. Holmes states that we're seeking to demonstrate, you must tell yourself that you have the faith in the power, faith in your ability, faith in God, and faith in the certainty of the demonstration that we desire. Faith has the power to consciously oppose, neutralize, and yet obliterate the opposite mental attitude. So he says, you must say to yourself, I know that the faith within me now neutralizes all doubt. Holmes says one of the greatest difficulties in New Thought movement is that we're likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. We've talked about that. My mom says you got to chop wood and carry water. My Quaker friends say you got to put feet to your prayers. The activity of God must express through us. She can't just come and drop it in our lap and say, there it is. You know, when I pray for patience, I have never seen a golden scepter and then I'm more patient. Somebody cuts me off in traffic and then I get the choice to be more patient. Am I waving at him with all 5 fingers or not? You know, it depends. Did I meditate that morning? I hope I did. By the way, driving up here today, it took 2 hands on the wheel. The wind is blowing, and that's a good thing. It's clearing some stuff out. So how to use it? Personally, when I want to manifest something, the first thing I think about is forgiveness. Forgiveness of myself, forgiveness of other people. And then I move to an attitude of gratitude and in asking in prayer, but it's not so much asking, it's claiming. He's stating things in a positive way, but only doing it one time. And then just giving thanks over and over, like it says in Mark, that it's already done. Believing that it's already done. We should work not with anxiety, but with expectancy, not by coercion, but with conviction, not through compulsion, but in a state of conscious recognition and receptivity. We don't have to drive or push, but we must accept and believe, and then expect with full faith that whatever we're asking for, whatever we want, is coming to fruition. Holmes talks about planting a seed. As we plant a seed, we reap a harvest. So must we believe that our prayers can be answered again, not acted upon by God, but God expressing as us. Because as I used to think prayer would change God, it doesn't work that way. Prayer changes us, aligns us to the activity of God. You've heard me quote Paul many times in Romans 12:2. And folks, that and probably Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ that strengthen me. Thank you to my grandmother. I don't quote a lot of scripture, but there's some things that make a lot of sense. And I used my grandmother's Science of Mind book. I probably got 2 or 3, but I used my grandmother's now in all this studying. It's interesting. Highlighters weren't invented back then. She underlined stuff in red, and it's interesting to see what was going through her mind as I read through these things. And it's just what a special gift. So Paul says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Universal law establishes that when you change your mind, your prayer must be answered, which is why Jesus said whenever anybody asked him to do something, he said, do you believe? Translated in today's language, can you accept the good that you're asking for? Think about that. Are you willing to accept the good you're asking for? Are you aligned to it? Do you have the consciousness for it? Or are you continuing, oh, well, but I don't know? Because Holmes says, no, you can't go to 2 masters. It's either in your doubt, in your fear, or it's in your faith that it's going to happen. God responds to his changed mind. That's the law. You've heard me say this as well. Complaining about anything just holds us in the position of not really wanting what we're asking for. Blaming, accusing, feeling guilty. That's just that negative mindset that stops everything that we've really been hoping for. So we've got to think about that. You can't get to where you want to be by focusing on the problem. Einstein proved it's totally different energy, different atoms, neutrons, electrons. Here is the problem, and I'm all about respecting the problem. I probably created it, or at least co-created it. So what I tell folks is, get it all over you, wallow in it, learn from it, see what it is, and then the key is to pivot and see it how you want it to be. And then when you see it how you want it to be and you focus on it, you hear it, you give that more energy and you feel it, that's what creates the new story. That's what creates the solution, not the problem. And it's not some Pollyanna deal where, oh, it's got to be perfect all the time. Absolutely not. But seeing this and respecting it is what this makes so amazing. And I promise not to talk politics. But when you think about that different energy, we all know what you resist will persist. So in pivoting away from this to find the solution, that's the beautiful thing, and that's what we have to remember to do. Because where are we? I mean, I'll be 54 this year. I was born in the 60s. Where are we on the war on drugs? It's still there. Where are we, 15, 16, 17 years later on the war on terror? It's still there. How about fighting cancer? We're fighting anything. I just saw one of my favorite politicians this morning that's running in El Paso said, and I'm going to fight for our kids, and I'm going to fight this. Well, I don't want anybody to fight that. I want them to read David Hawking's book on power versus force and know that things vibrate differently. Use different words. That's why I love being out of the media business. I could never get my producers or my writers of the news to look at that book and look at the different words that you could use, synonyms, and change the energy. It's just the lowest vibration there is. I don't watch a whole lot of news. I can tell you about what's going on in the world. But I pay attention on where I send my focus, where I spend my time. What do I do? And one of the most enlightened Baptists I've ever come across is Joel Osteen, and I listen to him all the time on the radio. He's got a beautiful message of hope. I have to translate a few things in my head, but not many. I'd much rather listen to that than the negativity of a lot of the other things that I used to listen to. Focus on and only think about what you want to create more of. Change your consciousness and the false condition will disappear. You just got to take a few minutes each day to go within, to feel yourself in joy, see yourself in joy, hear yourself in joy. And then the universe will line things up for you. So I was supposed to be here in December. I love speaking in December, mainly because of Advent. You can talk about love, peace, hope, a lot of good softball things right there that also make a lot of sense to me. And mid-December, I had to call Reverend Bonnie and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to be there on Sunday. Had something come up, had to have a procedure done, and all is well, which is great. But it gave Lillian 48 hours notice. So thank you for covering for me and doing such a phenomenal job. And so for a couple of weeks there, I was out of the office, just trying to get back on my feet, remember what my name was, stuff like that. And so this past Monday, I got back in the office and things are going pretty good. And I looked at the cash flow of the company and I gulped. And I have not had a lightning rod of fear go through me like that in quite a long time. I was just like, oh, goodness gracious. And I didn't say goodness gracious. But in that moment, I had to make a decision. Was I going to give my energy and my focus on the problem? Or was I going to focus on the solution? And I was so scared, I had to get my mind right real quick. And folks, it's okay to be freaked out, because I'm looking at it go, okay, I've got to write some checks this week, and there's some payroll, and there's some things coming up, and like, oh goodness, what am I going to do? So, took a deep breath, had to relax, because I literally was like, okay, what's going to happen? I really had to relax. I started to drift back for a second in the oh, woe is me, because I could validate my pain, and well, if people would have just paid me in time. There's all these excuses. And guess what? Excuses are part of the problem. They're not part of the solution. So I had to Pivot away. Maybe I should have called this message more about pivot than alignment, but it's all the same. And I had to think about what I would do to remedy the situation. I had to relax. And then I said, okay, I just closed my eyes. I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for divine guidance. All will be well. I had to believe it. I had to have faith that it would be. So folks, this is Monday. This is a federal holiday. This is Martin Luther King Day. There is no mail service, and I'm in need of a little bit of cash flow. 10 minutes later, guess who walks through the door? The FedEx guy with a huge check. So that's how it works. That's how it works. I could give you two other examples. There was back in August, something came up. I got a bill for $3,900 for somebody on something. I was like, oh my goodness, where am I going to get the money for that? I was like, it's going to show up. The next day, I got a refund check for somebody from something for $4,000. Boom, boom. That happened twice in the last 6 months. And I guarantee, not you, I guarantee me, that it wouldn't have happened had I stayed over here focusing on the problem. Or where is it going to come from? So feel just super blessed. And being the amazing man of faith that I am, since that happened on Monday, by Wednesday I was worried about, gosh, do I really have enough work for this year? Gosh, Bram, is everything going to be okay? Do you have enough work? Do you have enough projects? So I just...
Do hail again, please.
No hail for a while. Not here anyway. So instead of being focused on fear, will I have enough work for my crews? Will I have enough work for the company? I relaxed and I just went within and just gave thanks that divine guidance moving through me blesses and multiplies all that I have and all that I will receive, and that all the perfect projects, the profitable work would come our way. And then I just gave thanks for it for the rest of the week. Friday afternoon, towards the end of the day, 3 phone calls for 3 separate projects that are massive, for 3 contractors that we've never worked with before, that'll take us through the end of the year. I was just like, wow, it works. But it's like a muscle. I can't imagine how I let this muscle atrophy every once in a while. The stuff does work. But I got to pay attention to what I think, what I say, how I feel. When anybody ever asks me, hey, Bram, how you doing? You all know the answer. I am blessed. I am blessed. And guess what I've been saying since Friday? I am super blessed. Super blessed, because it's just amazing. This law of attraction thing, this alignment, this presence, this looking for the good stuff, because the better it gets, the better it gets. And that's what's been so amazing. And looking at how things have been turning out for a while, I can tell whether I'm in alignment, if I'm in tune, have I tapped in, tuned in, turned on to the presence, the alignment, the availability of everything that's wonderful in the universe. I can tell real quick just how I'm feeling. And I've talked about the art of allowing and things like that, but this law is constant, and my ignorance of it in the past never precluded me from its effects. And the more I pay attention to it now, the easier things get. It's not about brute force. It's not about a certain amount of energy. I did say chop wood and carry water earlier. We have to do some of that. We have to be involved so that Spirit can work through us. But I am not responsible for everything like I used to think I was. I used to think everything revolved around me. And guess what? Now I'm so blessed to know that it doesn't, other than the fact that the Christ presence, the Spirit, the universe within me, that's what revolves around. And there's a huge difference. It's taking the ego aside and just realizing my connection to who I am and what I am. Let's see, I got about another hour. Here we go. If we think and feel prosperous, the goodness of God responds with prosperity. That lack and limitation is just temporary. It's like the clouds. You just got to get up above the clouds to see the sun. The mind of God does not distinguish or make judgment. It merely responds to how we think and how we feel. So how do you use it? How do you want to use it? We're already all using it. Everything that we have, everything that we've manifested is what we've been thinking about. co-creating. So you all have heard the story about one day I was driving Brenda to school. And this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And she says, Daddy, how do you create something? Well, I said, well, Brenda girl, you got to get really clear about what you want. I said, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to see it. What color is it? How bright is it? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? How do you feel when you have it? She said, okay. Then she asked me a better question. How long does it take to create something? And I said, baby girl, how quickly can you create or remember a good feeling and then think about what you want? And for a long time, for me to create that good feeling or remember one, because again, the mind doesn't distinguish whether we remember, experience, or imagine. I used to think of getting off the roller coaster. I was just happy to be alive, but I had adrenaline coursing through my veins. That's a good state. That's a very empowered state, and you're just great vibration, much like I felt when I walked in here today. You recall that, then pivot and think about what you want. So I told her that a few years ago. And as parents, we've all wondered, did our children ever hear a word about what we ever said, what we ever taught? And gosh, I certainly hope so, because Baylor's getting ready to graduate, and just hope you're sending them off with good things. I also thought that I was here to teach him. Doesn't work that way. I think our children come through us to teach us all these wonderful things. So this past Thursday night was the district swim championships. Brenna is a freshman, Baylor's a senior. They swim for El Paso High. And it was not looking good for Brenna to be able to perform well at district, to be able to go to regionals. She just didn't have the times this year. So her mom reminded me, Stacy couldn't go to the meet. She said, I want you to pull Brenna aside when you get to the meet and give her a little talking to. And before anybody jumps on my case, it was all positive, okay? It was all, I promise you. But I looked deep in her eye. I held her arm, and I looked deep in her eye. And I said, Brenna girl, do you want this? She said, yeah. I said, then you got to dig deep. I said, I know you can do this. You know you can do this. But if you really want it, baby girl, you got to go get it. I said, get your mind right. Take a deep breath. Do what you need to do. Daddy loves you. Go have fun. Now, Doug would know, because he's a swimmer. He's been a swimmer. Brenna was swimming the 100-yard breaststroke, up and back twice. So it's 4 links. Not only did she qualify to go to regionals, but she got 3rd place, which means she medaled as a freshman, gets her varsity letter and everything, which Baylor, who's a great swimmer, never did. But she took 4 seconds off of her best time. That's almost unheard of. Almost unheard of. I mean, the coaches were jumping up and down. It was amazing, absolutely incredible. Nobody could believe it, except for Brenna. And so we got home, and her mom asked her, baby girl, what did you do? What was different? She said, you know what? I prayed before I raced. I've never done that. So Stacy asked a better question. Well, what did that look like, sweetheart? She said, I closed my eyes, and I needed to remember something that felt really good. So I remembered standing on the podium as a little girl, as the city swim champion, back when she was probably 8, 9 years old. Then I thought about what I wanted, and I saw myself standing on the podium here. I mean, that's all it was. It was getting a better feeling, you know, just really thinking about something good, and then seeing it how she wanted it to be. I mean, it's just, to me, it was brilliant. We just have to decide, do we want to react or do we want to respond? Are we going to look externally or internally? The truth is we can do anything, have anything, be anything for which we have the consciousness for. But that requires discipline of thought in giving our energy to what we want to create. I don't do New Year's resolutions. I do them every day, and the only advice I ever give is only think about what you want to create more of. The problems, the challenges, the opportunities will always be there. I try to only think about what I want to create more of. Lao Tzu said that if you correct your mind, the rest of your life will fall into place. Paul said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And the Buddha said, all that we are is the result of all that we have thought. What we think we become, with our thoughts we make our world. So with that in mind, my desire for you is that you create your highest and best this year and have a fantastic and wonderful year. Namaste.